Welcome to Pallilo Points. I'm Brandon Strange, joined by Charlie Pallilo of ESPN Houston's Press Box. Charlie, welcome in. Very interesting weekend of activity following the NBA's official start of free agency. One tweet got my attention over the weekend. Dave Hardesty of Clutch Fans, in reference to a tweet about Marc Gasol. Dave says this is exactly the type of free agent the Rockets lose out on because of James Harden's focus this offseason. I think this tweet's funny because it seems to miss the apparent reality of Harden's status with Houston, but it also got me thinking, does anything really change, though? Does this really change anything? Harden's ball-dominant style doesn't really jive with all players. So, Charlie, I'm just going to ask you now, does James Harden being in Houston make it a more or less desirable place to play for free agents that are, say, the tier of high-level role player and above, like a Gasol or an Ibaka?
If you're a one-dimensional offensive role player who can not so well run and chew gum at the same time, but you can stand at the three-point arc and jack up long shots, well, James Harden might be the teammate for you. Other end of the court, if you're an active defender who loves to get after guys on the perimeter, opposing guards or maybe small forwards, and do the work at that end of the court that James Harden's not so interested in doing, well then, under those circumstances, maybe James Harden is the ideal teammate for you. Otherwise, guys around the league are not thinking, James Harden is the flame and I'm another moth who's so drawn to him. Now, look, in fairness to James Harden, equating basically any other player in the NBA to LeBron James on that one, you're going to finish second. So Marc Gasol, seemingly like most free agents worth their salt, given the opportunity, the Lakers with LeBron, they're going to win over the Rockets. James Harden, no James Harden. But James Harden's style of play, even if to be modified under Stephen Silas, it's a lot of standing around doing nothing. Dick Vitale used to call them Polaroid guys, baby, at the college level, where one guy would dribble the ball, do everything, while four other guys were just standing around as if taking a picture. Not a real pretty picture for the Rockets right now going forward, though Christian Wood was a decent roll of the dice. Problem is, in today's NBA, a decent roll of the dice costs you $41 million for a guy with 12 good starts to his name.
The challenge with bringing free agents to Houston, though, definitely was there long before Harden got here. I think just what's interesting is just by comparison, though, we're always told how you have to have one superstar to have the gravity to get other superstars in. But Houston specifically has had a really hard time getting free agents to here and to buy into, hey, Houston's the place to come if you want to win. If Harden gets traded, which we presume is the end game here. If Harden does get traded, is the reality that Rafael Stone faces having to play that same game that Daryl Morey did when he was here, which was stockpiling assets, winning smaller trades to where you have the assets and the equity to land a big player in a trade, and then you hope to convince him to stay? Is that where Rafael Stone is headed?
It's a scary proposition because you go back to earlier in Morey's tenure. It's where the Rockets were dog paddling and perfected finishing ninth in the West 3 years in a row because, to their credit organizationally, from Les Alexander, the then owner, down, they were never going to tank and try to get high lottery picks multiple years in a row. But they were just never good enough to quite make the playoffs. But then you're picking 15th, 14th, 13th in the first round, and they weren't able to land a franchise player that way unless you get really lucky. Of course, Morey did take Marcus Morris when Kawhi Leonard was on the board with the very next pick, but that's increasingly ancient history now. So it was about accruing assets and then hopefully being the right trade partner to be able to make the right offer in the right moment, which turned out to be the case with James Harden. The Rockets did land Dwight Howard a couple of years later, but historically the Rockets, whether maybe a little self-denial, a little bit of arrogance, have always portrayed themselves organizationally as a franchise that guys are just clamoring around the league to come play for. And truth is, that has not been the case. Retaining guys because you can offer more money or wink and handshake agreements that will take care of you when this contract is over. Good history there, because the Rockets historically, this has been a very good and very credible franchise. The Rockets have had 3 losing seasons, 3, over the last 36 seasons. The Lakers can't match that. The Celtics can't match that. The Spurs can't match that. Of course, all those teams have won championships way more recently than the Rockets. Houston's not an undesirable city. This isn't to an NBA player like being told you're being dealt to Sacramento or to Minnesota. But Houston, it's not LA. It's not South Beach. And the Rockets do not have LeBron or that one player who's going to be the magnet to draw other high-quality players and construct the so-called three-man dream team here that we've seen in so many other places, or a few other places anyway.
Do you think that Rafael Stone will be able to bring back a caliber of player that will allow the Rockets to continue to compete at a high level?
Westbrook's trade value is really next to nothing. He's still an electrifying player. He's still a good player with a couple of glaring holes in his game, and he added another layer of playoff disappointment. And for a guy who supposedly was unhappy with the Rockets' level of overall discipline, the fact that on court himself, sometimes he is undisciplined with bad shots and out of control turnover play, even if driven by his rarely matched intensity, that to me, he's one of the 10 most exciting players I've ever seen play in the NBA. But now at 32 years old, with 3 years if he exercises the $47 million option on that third year, 3 years, $133 million. The Rockets' biggest gain in trading Westbrook to me would be the subtraction of that contract for flexibility going forward. Harden, he's such a unique player. First team All-NBA, rightfully so. His game, I think, because not built off the pure athleticism that Westbrook's is, should age a little bit better. Right? Harden's only a year younger than is Westbrook. I would think there's a real return out there for Harden, but you're not going to get a top 15 or top 20 player, I don't believe anyway, back as the principal piece coming back for Harden. You'd hope to get 2-3 guys who are quality for your rotation to keep you afloat in the near term, while you're trying to plot that next move. Can you clear enough cap space to be a big bidder next summer? Though I don't think the Greek freak's thinking, boy, if the Rockets can clear the decks, that's where I want to go. It's a very challenging phase. I don't think Rafael Stone and Steven Silas were set up to fail and being hired for their jobs. There are only 30 of each of them that exist in the NBA. And I mentioned 3 losing seasons in 36, but you want to go glass half empty. It's not terribly difficult to create a scenario if you move post Westbrook and post Harden that the Rockets could have 3 losing seasons in the next 3.